who, believe that there was a pedophile ring going on at this pizza place.
How did that start?
And still do.
All right, so this is why I wanted to talk to you about this, because 4 years ago I was very skeptical of whether or not when you would talk about men's rights activists or Gamergate or that stuff, like, is this really politics? And then obviously 3 years later, the guys flashing the white power symbol in the White House. So, there's relevance here. And what you're talking about is, it's not even a conspiracy. It's like a conspiracy machine that is just it's just a function. It doesn't need, it's just one that's going to keep producing the next, like you say, Pizzagate or Benghazi or whatever it is.
Exactly. Like InfoWars covers this nonstop, because for them, there's nothing to actually cover, and there's no end to the information, because they can take QAnon and just make shit up themselves, which without a doubt is what they're doing.
It's almost an ideological rubric in some ways, right? I mean, it's like just sort of the founding principle, and everything then feeds into it and then just gets sputtered out on the other side. And eventually something's going to stick, right? I mean, it seems like nothing's stuck yet from this except for the process itself. But eventually something's going to stick, and that's what they're looking for, it seems.
Yes, and there's already if you look online, you can find hundreds of pages, like ebooks that were put together with hundreds of pages that are the complete guide to all the QAnon breadcrumbs left up to this point. And the person who put the ebook together parsing each and every line. Oh, could this mean this event? Could this mean that event? And it's like, for an example of how easy it is to make this shit up is this one's my favorite example. So in November, this random post was put up on 4chan from QAnon. Nothing is random. Everything has meaning. And then the plus sign 3 times. And then 7 minutes
three
later,
times?
Dude, I know who it is. I know who it is. It's Ben Carson.
But then
nailed it.
But then here we go. 7 minutes later, Donald Trump tweets out, "My visit to Japan and friendship with Prime Minister Abe will yield many benefits for our great country. Massive military and energy orders happening." And then the plus sign 3 times. And so everyone took this as, okay, QAnon is either a member of the Trump administration, and he knew Trump was going to tweet the plus sign 3 times, so he tweeted it out first as like a wink-wink to all of us who are in on it, or Donald Trump himself posted this. But then if you look further into it, Donald Trump's tweet, the time zone, and the time zone the 4chan image board goes by are not in the same time zone. So Donald Trump actually tweeted his first, and then the guy who says he's QAnon posts this one, knowing the time zone is going to be off, and look like he posted it first.
But you know what's so messed up?
That's awesome.
You know what's so messed up about this is that this makes Binder be like them.
Hold on one second.
He has to think
Hold
like
on one
them.
second. That is. I mean, people have to step back and a round of applause. That's good stuff right there.
I mean, if it wasn't so right-wing and terrible, I think it's kind of a charming folk tradition. Like, ooh, people pass down stories. They pass them around. It's a popular art form.
Now, so what's to prevent us from, when we now know the president is going to be in East Asia, in a time zone that is 14 hours apart, from going on 4chan and just wreaking havoc with stuff like this?
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. If you can figure this out, and there are people writing ebooks about QAnon, is it not getting out on 4chan, or is it just we don't want to believe that? And, or do you, or if your theory hits 4chan, then do you become some type of, a debunker, like a signal to noise ratio? You're sent out by the deep state to muddy the waters.
I mean, the thing with these breadcrumbs is that even if you debunk that, then that's not what it meant. It wasn't meant to be like a message that we're in on it, and this is I knew what Trump was going to say. It must mean something else. It's some way to there's no way to debunk this because it's so vague. and people are just putting what their own belief is on it. And when that belief is destroyed by something like that, then they'll just say, oh, I must have been wrong. I was reading it wrong. It must mean this. And then they have a whole new belief.
So shouldn't
these things, like the breadcrumbs, are so vague.
Isn't it time to now acknowledge that Sam Biddle was right?
Yeah. I mean, I always knew he was, but
yes.
So, Matt, how many hours a day are you spending on this?
I mean, with the QAnon thing, it really isn't that much. There's a lot to it, but there's not so much to it in terms of what's out there beyond these message boards. And a lot of people add so much to it with their parsing of the language that it just becomes so muddled. So you'll never really know who is who like if you're following the actual main QAnon message. You could be following something that someone put up as to just mess with people, because again, there's nothing stopping Michael from going on 4chan right now and leaving a QAnon message. So it's really not that much, because the stuff that's out there is so vague that you read it and you basically just wait to see what people parse from it, and then just look at how that can't be true, because it's wrong what you're believing from it. There's really no way to disprove the actual QAnon breadcrumbs, because there's nothing there. You could only disprove what people are believing in the breadcrumbs, and then once you disprove that, they'll just believe they were wrong about the breadcrumb, and the breadcrumb is telling them something else. Is this in your mind the equivalent to the Gamergate or the MRA movement from like 3 or 4 years ago? Is there any other strains of deviant right-wingism that is growing on these boards? Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's going to be any names to come from this, because the names who are pushing it are pretty much the big names already in that world. You know, InfoWars, Jerome Corsi, Liz Crokin.
Jerome Corsi is in on this QAnon?
Yes, he's hardcore following this. He puts up videos where he parses random ones he decides he thinks he can decode. He's the InfoWars resident QAnon expert, it seems.
Wow. I have a question for you, Matt. Do you ever get worried that you're like an FBI profiler who follows serial killers, and they get sort of gradually it breaks their brain and it drags them over to the dark side and they become killers themselves?
The funny thing is,
concerned about that?
Or like Heart of Darkness style.
Yeah, Heart of Darkness.
I've been watching a lot of those shows on Netflix recently, the Unabomber one and then Mindhunter. Now I'm like, whoa.
Here's a question for you. Do you think crypto commies, such as myself when I'm being sneaky, could use this QAnon thing to trick people into having a critique of capitalism? There's this small group of people that controls everything in the world, and they influence elections, and they have all the power. Wonder who they are.
Capitalists don't want you to kill hookers in video games.
It's definitely possible. Boom. I mean, the thing is, there's been no main timeline to follow. There's been no decoded version of what a QAnon leaves that's taken the mainstream. Everyone I guess the closest you could get is what InfoWars thinks something believes. But even then, when you follow these QAnon forums, it's all just people giving their own belief of what it could be. And that's sort of why I don't think this is going to blow up to be a Gamergate where the mainstream media covers it, because I think it's just way too confusing. But I do think this is going to be a feeding ground that keeps every conspiracy, like the memo, for example, going much longer than it would have if this whole QAnon thing wasn't there.
Well, it seems to me it's like an incubator. Right? They're just going to keep rolling conspiracy theories through, and then one is going to hit. And if you've got people like Jerome Corsi and these others who are magnifying it, they're the ones who are going to mainstream it. At one point, one of them is going to hit, because it's going to have all the elements. The plus signs are going to be, actually legit or whatever it is. And the thing is going to metastasize. And pretty soon, Devin Nunes is going to be, raising it in the Intel committee. And, they'll get the next Trey Gowdy to do a year and a half worth of committee hearings on it or something. I mean, that's where it's going to come from, right? I mean,
I mean, if you think about where Pizzagate came from, it was basically WikiLeaks released these Podesta emails, and a bunch of people got together and were like, these pizza toppings mean different forms of like molesting children, and that's how it took off. They literally just made it up. What I wonder about is if this QAnon thing existed before Pizzagate, could people have just said, "Oh, maybe we misread and it wasn't Comet Pizza, it's another pizza place," and we could have had an armed guy go to pretty much every pizza joint in the country until they found something, which they never would have.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you can't just give up if it's. I mean, you got pedophilia is a big deal.
Pizzagate can't fail you. You can only fail Pizzagate.
Pizzagate, exactly.